My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality-Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life. Dan, in your book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, you talk about the elements of a comprehensive financial plan. How do values and goals dictate those elements?
Well, we're pretty unique in the financial services world that our entire focus is on quality of life. And quality of life is inherently personal to everyone that we help. So it is their values and priorities and motivations and goals that drive everything that we do. So if you don't start with your quality of life, if you think about somebody saying, for example, what do most people do? What is the average? Or, how much should I have by the age of 30? Well, those are generic types of things that don't necessarily apply to you. Some might and some might not. But when we talk about quality of life, we know right away that's all about you. And when we think in terms of our values, it is actually challenging as a financial advisor to take ourselves out of our own values and kind of put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're helping. And we call that cognitive empathy. It's the understanding of what they're dealing with, but without feeling the same emotions that they're feeling. We're just looking at it from their perspective and saying, okay, based on your values and motivations, here is a great way to align your resources as efficiently and effectively as we can to create those goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the generic advice that's out there. When in your book, you made reference to back in 2003, the prevailing advice at that time was that everyone needs $1 million to retire. And oftentimes in our meetings, we hear people come in and say, well, Fidelity told me I'm not on track for retirement. The Fidelity, online tool that they have told me I'm not on track for retirement. So would you say people should avoid these types of things?
Tools are there for a reason.
Mhm.
Calculators are there for a reason. Spreadsheets are there for a reason. They can be used certainly as some indication of where, like, kind of where you are on the path. But at the same time, what if the path isn't the right path? So if you think in terms of a destination you're trying to get to, if we were taking a trip and we wanted to get to Hawaii and instead we took the cheapest flight we could get, but it took us to Europe, that
Mhm.
probably doesn't make any sense, right? Even though it might have been a good deal for someone else, it doesn't make any sense for what we're trying to accomplish. And so a lot of these tools, what happens is first off, they don't account for everything that you have. We help a lot of people with pensions, and many of those tools just aren't going to account for the fact of how powerful that pension might be. So we don't even know if the output is even accurate. But at the same time, then all of a sudden, some of these things have a sunny or a rainy outlook, and somebody looks at that and they maybe have a partly cloudy outlook, and they take that seriously, and that makes them feel a certain way. I'm behind, I'm not doing what I need to do. But yet at the same time, maybe I have young children and I have a whole bunch of things going on with childcare and I'm trying to save for their education. So I'm balancing a lot of priorities. And when we talk about helping the types of people we help, we're not traditionally helping ultra high net worth types of clients. These are people who live off the cash flow that they earn every day. They might make decent money, but they're not sitting there going, I have unlimited resources to accomplish everything I need to do. And this is why it's so important to come back to those values and priorities that you have, because if we have to make choices about, okay, I'm going to sacrifice maybe one thing in exchange for trying to accomplish another thing, well, that's personal to you. And if you have unlimited money, you don't really have to make those choices. It's just, well, I can spread money around wherever I need to. So when we talk about those tools, a lot of times it causes people to make decisions that get them out of balance.
Yeah, and we've seen that sometimes. Now, when it comes to a financial plan, you state that the process of implementing your unique plan is much more important than the financial products you use during implementation. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, a lot of the tools that financial people will sell, whether they're
Mm,
selling investments, insurance, whatever it happens to be, for example, I'm going to use the example of investments with like index funds versus actively
mhm,
managed funds. Now, a lot of people may or may not know what that all means, but in the end, they're investments. And so if I pick stocks in one type of tool and I pick stocks in a different type of tool, it is very likely I'm going to accomplish a similar outcome. Maybe one is better than the other, but I'm going to accomplish a similar outcome. So it's not the product that matters as much as it is understanding why you have the product in the
mhm,
first place. So there are plenty of tools out there, and whether it's the so-called right or wrong type of tool, we have people come in all the time and say, is this the best thing available? And it's like, well, in many cases there isn't a best or a worst or a right or a wrong, and that's the way we tend to think. It's like it's this or this. There's no in between. When you're talking about trying to accomplish a goal and reach a destination, we want to make sure that you implement, like if you're saving for retirement, we want to make sure you have the accounts set up. You're
mhm.
actively saving and accumulating for the future. It's less important the product specifically inside of that account than it is to get the account set up. Where people procrastinate the most is not starting. And so
Yeah.
when you think about creating a financial plan, a lot of times people look at everything associated with it. They go, oh my goodness, I feel completely overwhelmed. And then when we're overwhelmed, we procrastinate. So if you start somewhere, you can always make modifications, but it's the starting that's the true hard part.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to financial planning, you indicate that there are three major focus areas. Now, with those, which areas should people start with? You have cash management, insurance, investments. And I know there are some financial advisors out there. Um, I don't know if I want to call any firms, but there are certain firms that start with insurance. So what is your perspective?
Well, this is a lot of times where it comes back to the hierarchy of cash flow.
Hmm.
And so you take steps, and these
Hmm.
steps are meant to move you in a positive direction. So we always have to start with the cash management perspective,
Hmm.
because ultimately if you can live within your means, whatever those means are, whether you have a lot of income coming in or not that much income coming in, if you can live within your means, you're going to be okay. And then, if you live within your means, you now have money available to be able to do those other things and allocate to future goals. So it always starts if we see somebody come in and their cash flow just isn't working. So they're living beyond their means, they're accumulating credit card debt, or maybe they're living off loans in a variety of different ways. They have to figure that part out first. And so the
Hmm.
first three elements of the hierarchy of cash flow are all about building that foundation. We want to put enough into our employer plan to get our full match. We want to pay off any high interest debt that we have, and then we want to accumulate an emergency reserve. And once people have done those things, now they have a relatively strong foundation to get into investing for the future, whether that's retirement, whether that's education, whatever it happens to be that you're trying to accomplish. But it always has to start with cash management. Now, at the same time, risk management is critically important for anybody where, for example, maybe you just recently got married, maybe you just had children. That's a big important time for risk management where you say, okay, we need to have at least some basic life insurance in place
Hmm.
so that heaven forbid one of you dies, we need to make sure the surviving spouse can take care of that family. So that is also something that has to happen up front. But the important part, when you said somebody leads with insurance,
Hmm.
if they lead with insurance in a way that hurts the rest of your planning. So a lot of times this might be somebody saying, hey, if you love your family, you should do cash value life insurance. And now you might spend thousands of dollars a year to obtain probably not even enough life insurance to truly protect your family. Where
Mm,
instead you could have used 20-year term or 30-year term life insurance that would be hundreds of dollars potentially instead of thousands. And
mm,
now you still have resources available to do some of these other things. So you got to be really careful about those people that lead with insurance. Are they doing it for your interests, or are they doing it for their own self-interest? And that's hard for consumers to identify because they're the experts and you're following their advice. So you got to be really careful about the motivations of the person who's giving you advice.
that's such great advice. I think that you've covered a lot. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I think sometimes we'll see young people come in, people maybe in their 20s, they just got their first job, maybe they did just get married or they bought a house, and they're trying to do everything all at once. And somebody will tell them you need to max out your Roth and you need to max out your 401k and you need to do all these things. And they're looking at it and they're going, I don't have that kind of money. I have student loans. Maybe I have childcare. Maybe I have a mortgage. And all of these things are pulling at your income. So, again, if somebody's telling you you need to max out your 401k, that's not necessarily bad advice. But then if I try to actually do that, it creates so much stress. So, aligning your resources with what's important to you at that point in time, this whole idea of planning, it's more of a marathon than it is a sprint, and you want to take consistently good actions towards accomplishing all of your goals, not just one, like maybe retirement down the road. So I think it's this idea of taking steps and following your own values and priorities is really critically important in the process.
Yeah, we definitely see that all the time, especially young people who are pressured by their parents to do certain things with their finances
Or
and do,
TikTok videos.
or TikTok videos. And it's kind of that uncertainty of not knowing what you don't know. So you just follow whatever advice is thrown your way. But I'm glad that we have things like the hierarchy of cash flow in place to try to provide a systematic approach to managing your finances. Well, thank you so much for all the feedback that you have provided on the elements of a comprehensive financial plan. And until next time, have a good one.
Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.